If you want to serve big, if you want to serve with more power, more spin, more pace, you need to watch this video all the way through. This is like unlike any video. We're going to be talking about from the very beginning, before you start your serve, all the way to the very end, all the little nuances. And in particular, we're going to be talking about the open versus closed stance. Can you get more power with one of them? Is one of them a little bit better than the other? We're going to dive deep into this topic, and we're going to show you exactly how you can get effortless power on your serve. All right, make sure you stay tuned because we're going to be talking about the pros and cons for the open and closed serve. But before that, we're going to talk about, even before you hit your serve, your pre-serve routine. It's super important, and now Caden's going to talk about why that is.
So before you serve, it's really important to make sure that you have a little pre-serve ritual. Personally, I like to make sure that I'm always focused on the point in front of me, not focused on anything that has previously happened. So what I like to do, and what you'll see some other players do, is maybe tap a paddle on the fence, maybe bounce the ball a couple times. Before I serve, I personally like to bounce the ball 2 or 3 times. I take a big deep breath in just to get myself relaxed and ready to go. And as soon as I hear that serve called, that's when I'll go for my serve. It's nothing too crazy. It just allows you to relax and get yourself ready for that point. So should look something like this.
Nice.
Simple as that.
Yeah, as Caden said, really good, you know, to center yourself. Again, like he said, if things have gone on or if you're down, taking a deep breath is really, really important. Get oxygen in your brain. And just like him, I take a couple bounces. As you just saw, he serves in an open stance and I serve in a closed stance, and we'll get to the nuances in a bit. But yeah, I'm right here. I take a couple bounces and I actually bring my paddle to my ball here, and then I start my swing and then I go for it. So however you want to do it, whatever you want to do, bounce the ball a couple of times, you know, twirl your paddle, whatever you need to do to get yourself grounded, centered again, and focus on the next point. That is the first thing that you need to focus on. All right, next up, we went over the pre-service ritual or your pre-service routine. Now we're going to talk about the grip. Before we actually talk about technique, how to gain effortless power on your open or closed stance, we have to talk about how you're going to be gripping the paddle. Different people do it different ways. Now we're just going to do a close-up, and I'm going to show you the grips first. All right, so the first grips that we're going to talk about is the continental grip, and I want you to notice that this is the grip you're going to be using if you're hammering a nail. So, you know, very comfortably, if you have ever done that. I call this the continental grip. The Eastern grip is going to be a little adjustment here, and how you get into an Eastern grip, what I do from this continental is I grab the tip of my paddle here and I actually rotate it to the left. So counterclockwise, sorry about that. So continental here, and then Eastern a little bit there. So you will see a lot of players using this grip here. It's an Eastern grip, okay? And then we're gonna talk about a semi-Western grip, which a lot of you may not use, but I just wanna show you what that is. So if I actually turn this even more like this is like what they call a pancake. If you were to pick up a frying pan, something like this is what the semi-Western would look like. All right, so now that you know the 3 main grips that people and players tend to use, we're gonna look at the contact point on my paddle face when it hits the ball when we are talking about those grips. So with a continental grip, here we go. And if I were to set up right now, I'm gonna talk about kind of like more like a closed stance. But if I'm setting up here for a serve, and then I just swing through like this is pretty good contact here. And hopefully you can see this is more straight up and down, okay? My edge guard here is facing the sky and it's pretty up and down. Now, if I change it to an Eastern, I just wanna show you what happens. That's an Eastern grip, and it actually allows me to much easier get to this position, or I could even, you know, turn it in a little bit, okay? So that's Eastern. And if I go full semi-Western, I just wanna show you what my grip is. It's like this, and I can easily actually, you know, turn my paddle this way. So when we're talking about topspin, when we're talking about generating upward motion on the ball, we do contact the ball somewhat, I would say, you know, kind of straight up and down, or maybe a little bit in like this. If you're contacting the ball this way, it's gonna go straight to the net or straight to the floor. But just to give you an idea of it and a sense of what these different grips look like, now let's get to the serve. All right, so before we get to the actual technique, now we're gonna talk about the toss or the release. I see lots of players struggling to get a good contact point or a very consistent one. We're gonna watch Caden first as he serves in an open stance. We're gonna watch in slow-mo where his contact is, and then we'll talk about it. All right, here we go.
All right. So the toss for the open stance is slightly different than what we would typically do in a closed stance. Now notice, once I turn my hips, because I'm right-handed, I'm going to be making contact, yes, still in front of my body, but more on the right side of my body. So when I do toss my ball, I actually toss it kind of right in front of my right leg and right toe, so I can swing from here. Right? If it was a little bit more centered to my body, I would have to be a little bit jammed here. So once I've rotated my hips and brought my body backwards a little bit, I'm tossing in front of my right leg so I can swing straight through this ball. Now, if you're left-handed, it's gonna be the same thing, but on the left side. So you have to make sure that you're tossing on the right side to make sure that you are having the proper contact point.
All right, so Caden, we just saw serves in a open stance. I serve in more of closed stance, and I'm gonna show you my toss / release and my contact point. All right, so hopefully you saw the similarities. One thing with the open and closed stance that we both do is make sure we're contacting out in front. One thing and one tip that I have on the toss, and Caden, if you can actually throw me another ball. I see a lot of players, actually, when we think of toss, they're actually tossing it up. And I don't really like this and recommend it, because if it's windy, or also the higher you toss the ball, there's more variance of where the ball can land. So if you watch Caden and I, we actually kind of release the ball, but if you watch mine, I'll raise my hand and I'll actually more so release it, so it's not really tossed. So that's how I get something really consistent. Lastly, before we move on, I do want to talk about the drop serve. You will see different players use it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think using a drop serve could be good. Drop serves are usually used in a closed stance, or more of a closed stance, but same kind of idea. If I'm going to be releasing the ball on a drop serve, I see a lot of players releasing it here, and then they're gonna end up being late. So if you're using a drop serve, I would recommend that you hold it out here, and you can see when the ball lands, if I release it, it lands like on my left toe line here, or a little bit out in front. And it's okay if it lands inside the court too. So if I'm doing a drop serve, it's totally okay to release it. I just gotta make sure it's out here. All right, now the moment you've been waiting for, open versus closed. Which is right? Which can get you more power, more spin? We're gonna actually go over the open stance first. We're gonna talk about its pros and some of its cons potentially. And we're gonna talk about exactly how the pros hit it. In today's game, we're seeing the open stance more and more, but we also see the traditional closed stance. So for open stance, we see the likes of Tyson McGuffin, Catherine Peranto, and a lot of other players use that. And for the closed stance, we see really powerful serves as well, more like a Deco Bar or a Ben Johns, okay? So whatever you choose at the end of this video is definitely going to be up to you, but we're going to give you the insight that you're going to need to pick which one is for you.
All right, so on my open stance serve, first things first, I am in a very slight Eastern grip here. I'm not quite continental. I do turn that paddle over just a little bit, just to get a little bit more spin. But once I'm in this open stance, one thing for me is I did do martial arts for 8 years, so I'm very comfortable and balanced in this open stance. And I felt very natural with using my body, my lower body and my upper body in this open stance. So if you guys feel very balanced and powerful in this stance, this could be something for you. So once I'm here, all right, notice I'm out in front, my contact is in front of my right leg, but notice all of my rotation and my power is going to be coming from my hips and my core. So if you guys maybe don't have the strongest core, or you've maybe had hip surgery and the hips are not as strong as you want them to be, maybe the open serve isn't quite for you yet. But when I'm serving, I'm using a lot of rotation from my hips and I'm tightening my core to really make sure I can drive through this ball and still get the power that I need. Where typically in that close stance, I'm gonna use a lot of legs. Here, it's gonna be mostly just my hips and my core, and I'm gonna be driving through this. So it's out in front, I rotate, and I drive.
All right, so really good stuff, Caden. Again, to emphasize, if you are using more of a open stance here, having strong legs is really important, a strong base, and really, bending your knees. And you'll see in this camera here, you will see as Caden starts, you will see this left knee kind of come a little bit lower. And that's because he is getting ready and he's actually turning his body and his core face towards the camera. So you will see a lot of this as open stance servers start. And then when they finish, they're finishing more like so. One of the good benefits of an open stance, the two I think that you mentioned to me, Caden, is after you finish your swing, you're already in that open stance to kind of be ready for the third shot.
Bingo.
The other thing is it can make it a little bit easier if you have a strong core and you can actually use your core muscles, and I'm actually driving up with my legs a little bit, if you can see that. This quick rotation can help you develop a quick topspin motion and quick swing speed, So I don't do this that often, but it's something that, after watching Caden, I'm probably gonna try a few more times here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more whippy for sure.
Yeah, so that's the open stance. And again, for those of you who are coming from tennis, and I know it's a very small percentage maybe watching this video, but if you're used to a semi-Western grip, the open stance is probably going to be something that you're more used to, because you're hitting balls a lot of times in an open stance on your forehand. So it's really like a forehand. And when we talk about that semi-Western grip, like we talked about earlier in the video, your grip is more extreme and you're going to want to get your contact and your paddle face like this. But with the semi-Western, you're more coming across and more windshield wiping in this way. So if you are in a semi-Western, maybe this open stance could be for you. We'll show you a couple clips here.
All right, now this is not how I normally serve, but I am in the semi-Western grip. I'm in my normal open stance. Let's see if I can pull this off. Never played a day of tennis in my life, but here we go. Oh, that was filthy.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let me knock one out.
Let's see if you can do it. Two hopper in the net coming. Oh,
that was
pretty good. Like I said, never played tennis, but I'm just that guy. Here we go. Ugh. Oh yeah.
All right, so that was the open stance, and hopefully you saw some of the little advantages it could have when you are trying to develop and hit topspin. Again, you're gonna have to have a strong core, strong base, a lot of core rotation and hip rotation, and you're going to be swinging and really quickly coming through with your hips, and you're ready, gonna be in that open stance, ready for the ball. So now that we talked about the open, we're gonna jump right to the closed stance, kind of more the traditional stance. So now let's get right into it. All right, the closed stance. This is my preferred stance. We just talked about how Caden is enjoying using the open stance. I like to use the closed. Couple key benefits for the closed stance. I think for most players, it's gonna be a little bit more natural, especially if you're coming from something like golf, maybe baseball, right?
Because I'm a baseball player.
Golf here, right? We know that that's what our swing looks like. We're more in a closed. Baseball, same thing. We're gonna be hitting like this. Me just coming from tennis, I used to hit a lot of my forehands in a closed stance. And I know some tennis players use a lot of open stance, but I'm more comfortable here. So it's actually a little bit easier for me. The benefits here of a closed stance is going to definitely be that weight transfer. So when we talked about the open stance, using a lot of core rotation, really quick drive with your legs and your core and your hips. For the closed stance here, I can actually use my weight transfer to my advantage to get easier power, okay? So this is why I recommend this serve to most players. I am in an Eastern grip, just like Caden, hitting in a closed stance. You'll see me set up like so. Okay, you can see in this camera, I have my left foot in front, my right foot's a little bit behind. And if I'm serving cross court like this, it's a little bit behind here. So if you see in this camera, you can see my right toe a little bit behind my left toe, okay? So from right here, and when I talk about the weight transfer, I'm going to be having my weight in my right leg, and then as I come through the ball, I'm rotating my hips and my core as well, but I am coming through the ball and I'm getting a lot of power using my weight forward, okay? So it looks something like this, okay? Okay, so you will even see me, different players are gonna do it differently, but I will definitely utilize my weight transfer and you will see my right leg kind of come through, and then I'll step back after the serve. And then quickly, as for contact point, like we said, I'm still contacting it out in here. I'm going to take my paddle back here, and then as I'm transferring my weight, what you're gonna see that's very similar to the open stance is I have to be rotating my hips and my core as well. So you will see right before contact, you will see my hips and my chest rotate right before contact, and then I'm always gonna be following through upwards towards my left shoulder, over my left shoulder. So whether you're using an open stance or a closed stance, the follow through is gonna be very, very similar. Okay, I'm gonna show you one more time here. So we kind of talked about the actual finish here, but now we're gonna talk about start to finish. So whether you're in an open stance here or you're in a close here, the biggest key thing if we are trying to develop topspin is we have to be coming up on the ball. Actually, I'm gonna show you that really quickly. So generating topspin, when we're talking about the serve, is we have to be swinging up on the ball. This is the Topspin Pro. I might leave a link down below. I think it's a really useful tool, but the way we create topspin is swinging up on the ball like that, right? If I were to just put this paddle on the ball and then I were just to do that, you can see the ball spin. But obviously we're not gonna be doing that when we're striking the ball. We're actually hitting the ball up, right? So at some point in your swing to develop topspin, whether you are in an open or closed stance, this paddle head, I call this the paddle tip or paddle head, is going to have to drop. So from here on my serve, it's dropping below the height of the contact. That's super important. I see players hitting straight, like kind of this swing path, and you can kind of see that. There's not gonna be much topspin. There could be good power, but there's not a lot of topspin to keep the ball in, and also that ball might go into the net. When we're swinging up on the ball, that's how we're generating topspin. And then as I come back on my backswing, I'm going to go low and come up through the ball like this. When you're in an open stance serve, same thing. Caden is dropping, or releasing right here, and then he's coming up on the ball like this. So that's really important when it comes to getting topspin efficiently, and make sure you're following through high above your left shoulder. All right, so the last thing I do want to mention is wrist lag now, or paddle lag. Now, when you are serving more efficiently and you're using your core and your hips and your strong base to create a lot of the power, you're not going to be swinging from your arm and trying to develop all your strength and power from your arm. You actually want a very loose shoulder, whether you are in an open or a closed stance. And what would you say, Caden, your grip pressure is when you're serving?
About a 5 or 6. It's nothing too crazy.
Okay.
I don't have it on a death grip. I don't want it too tight, but I definitely like it to be loose so I can swing a little bit more freely.
Yeah. So most players, I think that they grip the paddle way too tight. I would recommend even like a 3 or 4 in the very beginning, so you can actually you know, have a relaxed wrist, and then also your shoulder, everything's relaxed. So if you're super tight on your serve, then that's gonna cause a lot of problems, maybe some elbow problems, and also you're not gonna get power efficiently. So one of the things I wanna talk about is wrist lag. When I come through the ball, or when I start my backswing and I'm actually going to swing through the ball, it's a natural result of this acceleration for me, right? So when I'm coming through the ball, you can just see how if I were to come through really quickly, and if my wrist is really loose and relaxed, you will see my wrist or my paddle lag behind a little bit here, and then as it comes through the ball, now I'm following through here. And you'll also see it in Caden's open serve. So we're gonna end this by kind of just highlighting that. And one thing that I would do when you're learning a serve is to try to stay as loose and relaxed as possible. If you're really tight, especially in your grip, you're going to end up, you know, being really tight on the ball, and it's going to be really hard for you to develop easy and efficient power over time. Here we go. All right, now that we end this video, don't click off now. We're gonna talk about some really important things and reasons why you need to keep improving your serve, and how this game has developed into, you know, putting more pressure on that serve.
Yeah. I think when I first started, the whole goal was just get the serve in, but now we have to have intent behind our serve. So obviously we know we're trying to get our serve deeper, sharper, but when you're practicing your serve, you can also work on having a target in mind. So whether it's the backhand, because maybe the backhand's weaker, or the forehand, or the body to get them uncomfortable and jammed, a target is always something that you can put out there. So a cone, maybe some dots out there, people, bottles, you name it. Any sort of target and location is really good for you guys to kind of aim for and have intent behind your serve, because if you don't have intent, then, well, we're just kind of throwing the serve in.
Yeah, so along with targets, right, and most of the time, Caden, I think you and I are just going for deep, a lot of topspin. Yeah. As deep as we can. For sure. And moving it to the forehand or to the backhand, trying to find a weakness there. Sometimes I like going straight for the body. Yep. Kind of straight at them, because they have to kind of more come around it and move for the return. And one thing that I do want to add on, as you're experimenting and improving your serve, is experimenting with different heights on your serve and paces, okay? So you will see, you know, as I practice my serve, try to mix in also my targets, you're gonna see me with different heights on the ball and different paces. So now, Caden and I are gonna show you a couple different variances on our height and also on our pace. So without talking about targets, now we're talking about the actual pace we put on the ball. Sometimes I like to hit more flat and just straight. And again, in this closed stance, I can more flatten it out because I'm using a lot of my weight transfer here. So like this, okay, more flat like that. That's pretty. Or I might actually swing a little bit more upwards on the ball. So you're gonna see my swing come like here, and I'm gonna swing a little bit with a slower swing speed, something like this. Okay, so that one is like a way different ball. And even though that was maybe half the speed, that ball's landing really close to the line. And now that contact point for the opponent is a lot higher than the previous one. So yeah, any thoughts, Caden? Are you gonna show me a couple? No,
absolutely. It's all about making your opponents uncomfortable. If you get a little bit too predictable or one-dimensional, it's not a bad idea to mix up your serves. So for me, I actually will mix in a lob serve every now and then just for the heck of it, because you know what? Especially at the pro level, sometimes they're not expecting it. So my normal serve, you know, just nice and sharp and deep if I can. And every now and then I might just say, hey, here you go. Oh, that's a beaut.
That's a pretty dirty serve.
That's a dirty serve.
So again, to recap, we would really urge you and recommend that you kind of pick and experiment with both the open and the closed stance. One thing that we didn't really go over is kind of like a semi-open stance.
Yeah.
Kind of like in the middle here with your feet in a 45-degree angle from the line. But you can experiment with different serves. Hopefully this clarified why certain players use an open stance and why certain players use a closed stance.
Yeah.
So they're getting power in a little bit different ways, but in both stances, you're still gonna be using your core and your hips. Hopefully that was really evident in this video. And then our contact, getting that top spin, actually swinging up on the ball, making sure we're getting this tip down, and our follow through. Our follow through is huge. One of the things that you saw Kaden and I on both stances is that we're following through, ending up above our left shoulder.
Yeah, well, and keep in mind, whether you get your serve in 100% of the time or 80% of the time, it's never a bad idea to work on your serve, work on new things. If you feel like you have a good serve, I promise you there are different things that you can do to mix things up and make your serves more effective. So never feel like something is too good to work on. Always practice your serves and keep trying to get better if you can.
Cool. Stay tuned, subscribe, see you in the next video.
Here's a serve I've been working on. It's probably gonna make its debut in 2024. Be on the lookout for it. It's gonna be everywhere.